Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajakacharya Astarasata Sri Srimadis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 2, Daksha curses Lord Shiva, Text 31. eṣaḥ eva hi lokānāṁ śivaḥ panthāḥ sanātanaḥ yam pūrve cānusantasthur yat-pramāṇaṁ janārdanaḥ eṣaḥ hi lokānām śivaḥ panthāḥ sanātanaḥ yam pūrve cānusantasthur yat-pramāṇaṁ janārdana eṣaḥ hi lokānām śivaḥ panthāḥ sanātanaḥ yam pūrve cānusantasthur yat-pramāṇaṁ janārdana eṣaḥ hi lokānām śivaḥ panthāḥ sanātanaḥ yam pūrve cānusantasthur yat-pramāṇaṁ janārdana lokānām Vaishnavis. eṣaḥ, the Vedas. Eva, certainly. He, for. Lokānāṁ, of all people. Śivaḥ, auspicious. Panthāḥ, path. Sanātanaḥ, eternal. Yam, which. Vedic path. Pūrve, in the past. Cha, and. Anusantasthuḥ, was rigidly followed. Yat, in which. Janārdana, pramāṇam, the evidence. Janārdana, Janārdana. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. The Vedas give the eternal regulative principles for auspicious advancement in human civilization, which have been rigidly followed in the past. The strong evidence of this principle is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is called Janārdana, the well-wisher of all living entities. Purport. In the Bhagavad-gītā, it's a long purport, so you have to pay attention. In the Bhagavad-gītā, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, has claimed that He is the Father of all living entities, regardless of form. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and Lord Kṛṣṇa claims that He is the Father of all. Because the living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are all sons of the Lord. And for their benefit, because they are hovering under the impression that they can lord it over material nature, the Vedas are given to them for their guidance. Therefore, the Vedas are called apauruṣeya, but they are not written by any man or demigod, including the first living creature, Brahma. Brahma is not the creator or author of the Vedas. He is also one of the living beings in this material world. Therefore, he does not have the power to write or speak the Vedas independently. Every living entity within this material world is subject to the deficiencies, to four deficiencies. He commits mistakes, he accepts one thing for another, he cheats, and he has imperfect senses. The Vedas, however, are not written by any living creature within this material world. Therefore, they are said to be apauruṣeya. No one can trace out the history of the Vedas. Of course, modern human civilization has no chronological history of the world or the universe, and it cannot present actual historical facts older than 3,000 years. But no one has traced out when the Vedas were written, because they were never written by any living being within this material world. All other systems of knowledge are defective because they have been written or spoken by men or demigods who are products of this material creation. But Bhagavad-gītā is apauruṣeya, for it was not spoken by any human being or any demigod of this material creation. It was spoken by Lord Kṛṣṇa, who is beyond the material creation. That is accepted by such stalwart scholars as Shankaracharya, not to speak of other acharyas such as Rāmānujācārya and Madhvācārya. Shankaracharya has accepted that Nārāyaṇa and Kṛṣṇa are transcendental, and in Bhagavad-gītā also, Lord Kṛṣṇa has established aham sarvam pravartate, mata sarvam aham sarvasya prabhavo, mata sarvam pravartate. I am the origin of everything. Everything emanates from me. This material creation, including Brahmā and Śiva and all the demigods, has been created by him, for everything has emanated from him. He also says that the purpose of all the Vedas is to understand him. Vedaśta savaraham eva vedyo. He is the original veda-vit, or knower of the Vedas, and vedānta-kṛt, or compiler of Vedanta. Brahma is not the compiler of the Vedas. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is established Tene Brahmā Hrade, the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Personality of Godhead, instructed Brahma in the Vedic knowledge through his heart. Therefore, the evidence that Vedic knowledge is free from the defects of mistakes, illusions, cheating, and imperfection is that it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janārdana, and has thus been followed from time immemorial, beginning from Brahma. The Vedic religion, or the principles of the Vedas, have been have been followed by the highly cultured population of India since time immemorial. No one can trace out the history of Vedic religion. Therefore, it is sanātana, and any blasphemy against the Vedas is calculated to be atheistic. The Vedas are described as somehow I can't read that word. The Vedas have been described as setu, which means a bridge. If one wants to attain his spiritual existence, one has to cross an ocean of nescience. The Vedas are the bridge by which to cross such a great ocean. The Vedas described how to divide the human race into 4 divisions according to quality and working capacity. This is a very scientific system, and it is also sanātana, for no one can trace out its history, and it has no dissolution. No one can stop the system of varnas and ashramas, or the caste and divisions. For example, whether or not one accepts the name for Brahmana, there is a class in society which is known as the intelligent class, and which is interested in spiritual understanding and philosophy. Similarly, there is a class of men who are interested in administration and in ruling others. In the Vedic system, these martially spirited men are called kshatriyas. Similarly, everywhere there is a class of men who are interested in economic development, business, industry, and money making. They are called vaishyas. And there is another class who are neither intelligent nor martially spirited nor endowed with the capacity for economic development, but who simply can serve others. They are called Sudras, or the laborer class. The system is sanātana. It comes from time immemorial, and it will continue in the same way. There is no power in the world which can stop it. Therefore, since the Sanatana Dharma system is eternal, one can elevate himself to the highest standard of spiritual life by following the Vedic principles. It is stated that formerly the sages followed this system. Therefore, to follow the Vedic system is to follow the standard etiquette of society. But the followers of Lord Śiva, who are drunkards, who are addicted to intoxicants and sex life, who do not bathe and who smoke ganja, are against all human etiquette. The conclusion is that persons who rebel against the Vedic principles are themselves the evidence that the Vedas are authoritative, because by not following the Vedic principles, they become like animals. Such animalistic persons are therefore evidence of the supremacy of the Vedic regulations. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the Lord here is called Janārdana, the well-wisher of all living entities. There's a temple in South India, a Janārdana temple. It's about 28 miles north of Trivandrum or Trichy, so in Kerala state in southern India. It was visited by Lord Chaitanya during his tour of South India. He also visited the Padmanabha temple, which is in Trichy itself, very famous temple. I went to the Janārdana temple when I was on a lecture tour of South India. And it was very interesting. It's kind of on a hill, slight hill, and there's steps going up to it. And I saw at the bottom of the hill, just before you go up the steps to the temple complex, some temple, either pujaris or employees of the temple were there, and they had this little brass cannon. And I said, well, what is that for? He said, well, when a big donor comes to the temple, we fire off the cannon. And according to how big a donor they are, they get a bigger shot from the cannon. So I kind of wondered if this was the origin of the term big shot. If a big shot is coming to the temple, boom. Of course, they do this in different countries. You know, when the president or king of a visits a country, you know, they usually have the military come out with cannons, and according to how big the person is, they get a 3-gun salute, a 7-gun salute, a 14-gun salute. So, but we don't want to become big shots. We want to become the das anu das. So, as usual in his purports, Srila Prabhupada is very often either paraphrasing or directly quoting verses from Bhagavad-gītā. Like in the very beginning he said he's the father of all living entities. Aham bija pada pitaha. You know, it says in the Bhagavad-gītā, I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. And then it's quoted here, Aham sarvasya prabhava matas sarvam pravartate iti madhva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. That means, you know, the rest of the verse is, the first part of the verse is saying, everything is coming from me, everything is emanating from me. But the second part is, if somebody realizes this, that everything is emanating from Krishna, everything is Krishna's energies, then such a person becomes a worshipper of Krishna. And such persons are called Buddha, very intelligent. Bhava samanvitaha, they're very fixed on this service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the verse goes on to say, that the purport goes on to say that the Vedic literature is apauruṣeya. It's not the composition of anyone within the material world, even the first living creature, Brahma. So that is mentioned in the purport, how the Vedic knowledge first comes to Brahma from within the heart. Krishna instructs him within the heart. Tene Brahma Hriday Yada Kavye Mayanti Yat Surya. It's explained in the first verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where this knowledge is coming from ultimately, and why it should be taken so seriously. So that point is made in the purport. And it's then stated that the actual history of this cannot be traced out. Srila Prabhupada is making some points about history, which goes into a topic that I've been given a service about, which is the history of human civilization on this planet and in the universe. Because the point is being made that this knowledge is always there from the very beginning of the universe. Because Brahma, it's his business to make the planetary systems and the 8,400,000 kinds of material bodies that the conditioned souls will use as vehicles during their stay in the material world. And there's not just one inhabited planet. There are millions of inhabited planets in this universe. And then there's not just this one universe. There are unlimited universes expanding from the body of Mahavishnu, and they're constantly being created and destroyed. And in all of them, the Vedic literature is given at the beginning of creation, stated there's a Brahma in each universe. In the room where I stay in the BBT building, there's a devotee, Sura, used to have his office there, and he had some paintings, BBT paintings on the wall. And one of them shows the scene from Dwarka, where all the Brahmas from all the different universes come to see Krishna in Dwarka. And our Brahma has 4 heads because he's in the smallest universe. Some of the Brahmas have 100 heads, 10,000 heads, 1,000,000 heads, because they're in universes much bigger than ours. And they're much more intelligent than our Brahma. But none of them are the authors of the Vedic literature. They may have a role in introducing it into human society. There's Brahma, we're part of the Brahma Madhvācārya Sampradaya. So Brahma plays some role, but the originator, the real author, you could say, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ultimately. So, and it's not even really correct to say it's written at any point in time. The history can't be traced out because it's eternal. So, then we have to ask, well, what are all these creations meant for? They're meant to give an opportunity for conditioned souls to enjoy themselves apart from Krishna. I mean, Srila Prabhupada expresses it in a very interesting way. About, let's see, where is the sentence about hovering? Well, I can't write, it's a long purport, I can't find the exact sentence. Yeah, they imagine. Yeah, so there are certain souls who can't accept the position, that their natural position is to be eternal servant of Krishna. Jivara Swarupa Hoy Krishnara Nityadas. That's the actual position. One can do nothing other than serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead by nature. But still, because we have free will, we can imagine that we can enjoy separately from Krishna. We can hover in that illusion. So the purpose of the material creation, the material universe that we're now within, the purpose is a dual purpose. One is to give us the opportunity to keep hovering in that imaginary pursuit of the illusion of material happiness. And in that condition, we're like, we're identifying with a material bodily vehicle that is designed to help us become engaged in that illusion. So it's like we're an illusion chasing after a hallucination. It's not a good position to be in. So Krishna is right from the very beginning giving the Vedic literature as an antidote to our addiction to imagining ourselves to be independent enjoyers. So that purpose can be fulfilled in the human form of life. So for that reason, if that's the purpose of all these universes that are being constantly manifested and destroyed in endless cycles of time, that means that our human form is, in that sense, eternal. That it's always there, just like the Vedic literature is always there. And the universes are always being manifested and unmanifested. That indicates something. Sometimes people talk about people who believe in God and demigods, and they're engaged in anthropomorphism. They're projecting their human form unto God. In other words, it's just an imagination, that God has a human form. So that's another thing to consider. Actually, I think the real situation is we're theomorphic. We have a human-like form because Krishna has his particular form like that. So those are few thoughts about the Vedic literature being eternal, and you can't trace out the history of it, and it's being manifested, the Vedic literature is being manifested again and again and again. So it's always existing. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that great acharyas like Rāmānujācārya and Madhvācārya have accepted this, and that Lord Kṛṣṇa is eternal. Even Shankaracharya, surprisingly, admits this, according to statements that Srila Prabhupada has made. I think it was Shankaracharya said, Nārāyaṇa Paravyaktāt. Narayan, or Lord Kṛṣṇa, is transcendental to the material creation, and he is said to have spoken at the last part of his life, Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam Mudamate. He called his followers to, at the end, worship Kṛṣṇa, worship Kṛṣṇa, worship Kṛṣṇa. Couple more points from the purport here. Srila Prabhupada spends quite a bit of time saying that the Varna, system of Varna and Ashrama is also sanātana. It's not a cultural imposition. Like people might say, oh, you're just trying to bring in to the West here some cultural imposition. These brahmanas, these kshatriyas, it's just a feature of Indian Hindu culture, and you're trying to introduce that into a society where everything's completely different, and we have a different conception of human nature. But no, it's a feature you can observe in every human population, that whether you call them brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, or sudras, you look at any group of human beings in the world, you see they naturally divide themselves up. There are people who are concerned with philosophy and spirituality and activities like that. They're teachers. They study things. They get into occupations like that. So you can call them brahmanas or you can call them whatever. But nature is like that. It produces that. So there are certain people who are just naturally inclined towards fighting, protecting, and controlling things, administering them. So that tendency is there in human populations. There's also people who are very concerned about money making and how to manufacture things, businesses, and things like that. People who are interested in producing different foodstuffs and things like that. Naturally, such people are there. And then there are people who are laborers. They don't have the other tendencies. And this is one of the things that help me initially have faith in the teachings of the Bhagavad-gītā and Krishna consciousness. Because when I got the Bhagavad-gītā and started reading about these varnas, I could immediately see that it was true, that it wasn't just some cultural imposition, that it was an actual feature of reality. And it's the same with the ashramas. You could say, this brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, just some cultural imposition from India, and who cares about India? No, it's an actual feature of reality. You see, by nature, up to a certain age, the boys and girls, they're naturally celibate. And they naturally separate from each other. But then at a certain age, they become involved with each other on a different platform, and there is this grihastha, this householder ashrama, in which they have children, just there by nature. And then at a certain age, they can no longer have children and no longer work so hard. And then finally there's complete renunciation, leaving everything behind. That happens to everyone by the course of nature. So what the varnashram system does is it organizes this consciously in a manner such that people can deal with their material necessities of life in the most simple, natural, efficient, and fair way possible, while putting most of their human energy into developing their Krishna consciousness, which is, of course, transcendental to all of that. So, let's see if there's another point I wanted to make. So the final point that Srila Prabhupada made is an interesting one. He said the best evidence for the Vedic principles is the people not following them, which probably included many of us at the time we became involved in the Krishna consciousness movement. And we've gotten a little bit away from the Shiva topic, which has been prominent over the past couple of weeks as we've gotten into this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But he does mention it there, that there are some followers of Lord Shiva who are drunkards, addicted to intoxicants and sex, who don't bathe, who smoke ganja. Says so. He says on that basis that the people who aren't following are the best evidence for the Vedic principles being what they are. So, stop there. Yes? Oh, it's a little late.
Thank you, Prabhu. So we just learned that Varnashrama system is a part of Sanatana Dharma. From my understanding, Varna is attached to the body, right? Because in different lifetimes we could have different Varna, so attached to the body. And then I'm understanding it's the system to accommodate this spiritual process. That's why it's part of Sanatana Dharma. At the same time, a little earlier we learned that Vedas is not recommended to be taught to Shudras. So how then Varna system could be a part of Sanatana Dharma?
Well, there are different systems of Sanatana Dharma in the sense that there's the Vedika system, in which that distinction is made, and then there is the Panthāḥ system, which we follow, in which anyone can become qualified by, the panthāḥ system. Because, it's like you said, if we're following the strict Vedika system, then only Brahmins, people born in Brahmin families, can get that initiation. Certain categories like the Sudras, they aren't allowed to study the Vedic literature, but we're passing out the essence of the Vedic literature, Bhagavad-gītā, millions and millions of copies to people who are not only Sudras, but less than Sudras. But that system is, that's the system that we're following. Yes? Or if anyone has any further comment to make on,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you for your class. So you were saying that the conditioned living entity is trying to lord over material nature, and then when they become tired of it, so they take Krishna consciousness. So what about if they not take Krishna consciousness, but they take another processes outside the Vedas? So they're gonna get tired of those processes, and like Christianity, Muslims, and then become Krishna consciousness? Or how does that work?
Well, it's hard to say for any particular individual what their path is going to be, but ultimately, Srila Prabhupada has said that followers of other religions, they can make progress. There are lots of different destinations in the spiritual world. There is part of Shiva Loka, Maheshdam, which is on the border between the material and spiritual world, where certain souls can go. There is the Brahmajyoti, where different types of impersonalists can go, some who can make further progress and some who have to go back down. And then there are the Vaikuntha planets, where the Lord is worshipped in awe and reverence. And then there's Goloka, where there's Ayodhya Dham, there's Goloka Dham, which is divided into different sections. There's Dwarka, there's Mathura, there's Vrindavan. So there are lots of destinations for people who approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead in different ways. So we're fortunate that we've come shortly after Krishna has displayed his pastimes in the material world. He only does that once every 8,600,000,000 years. And then he's followed immediately by Lord Chaitanya. Krishna displays the pastimes so that people can become attracted to them. And then Lord Chaitanya gives what is rarely attained, knowledge of the love of God, prema, of the kind that's practiced in Goloka Vrindavan. He's giving that out freely to everyone. So that was his merciful intention, is to flood the world with prema, to give everyone the opportunity, everyone from every background, to have that opportunity to get the highest form of love of God. Okay, I think we'll stop here. We're kind of